How are you guys doing? Today is Monday, April 5th, 2021, out here in this quarantine. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to review the Elite matchups and performances from yesterday, Sunday, April 4th, 2021. And of course, I'm going to preview everything that goes on today as we navigate through the world of sports one day at a time. Starting off yesterday, first seed Stanford, who was actually the winners of the Pac-12 for NCAA women's. The Stanford women's basketball team beat third seed Arizona yesterday in order to win the national championship. This is a game that went all the way down to the wire. It would come down to a last possession from Arizona where they gave it to their star, Aari McDonald. Aari McDonald would find herself triple teamed and she would miss the final shot, and Stanford would walk away with a 54-53 win. This is their second women's basketball championship in school history. The last time they won it was in 1992. So of course, for every person playing on the floor, this was the first time that Stanford had won in their lifetime. So of course, very big accomplishment for them. As the women's national champion, as the women's March Madness bracket is over, as a bracket we saw start with 64 teams, only as one team sitting at the end of it, and that team is Stanford, and that'll be the last women's college basketball game, I believe, until about October, November-ish. Looking at now what's going on with men's college basketball. Tonight is the men's national championship as the winners of the Western Coast Conference, Gonzaga, are going to face off against Baylor, the number one seed that came out of the Big 12. They did not necessarily win their conference, but they won every single one of their March Madness games to get here. Baylor, of course, coming off of a 78-59 win against second seed Houston. And Gonzaga coming off of a 3-point overtime win versus UCLA thanks to an incredibly clutch basket from inside the half court line from Jalen Suggs, their freshman. So like I said, that championship is tonight at 9:20 on CBS. This will be the last college basketball game that we will see until about October, November, because it's a late fall, early winter sport for college basketball. So we're gonna go quite a bit without it. This will be the last college basketball game of the season tonight at 9:20. It'll be on CBS. Looking at what's going on in the NBA, starting off in Atlanta, the Atlanta Hawks hosted the Golden State Warriors, and in this matchup, the Hawks were able to beat the Warriors 117-111. For the Golden State Warriors in this matchup, they would keep it close for a majority of the game, but the Hawks would eventually pull away, outscoring the Warriors by 9 in the fourth quarter to come from behind and pick up their 26th win of the season. For the Warriors in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their goated starting point guard Stephen Curry out of Davidson, who finished with 37 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 steals, alongside 8 turnovers in 37 minutes, as Steph Curry shot 12 for 23 from the field, 3 for 12 from 3, and 10 for 12 from the free throw line. Alongside him in the starting lineup, their starting shooting guard Kelly Oubre Jr. would finish with 20 points, 11 rebounds, 2 steals, and 3 blocks in 37 minutes, as he shot 9 for 16 from the field and 2 for 6 from 3. For the Atlanta Hawks in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their starting center, Clint Capella, who finished with 24 points, 18 rebounds, and 2 blocks in 32 minutes as he shot 10 for 16 from the field and 4 for 6 from the foul line. Alongside him in the starting lineup, their elite starting point guard, Trae Young, would finish with 13 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists, and 7 turnovers in 28 minutes as he shot 3 for 11 from the field and 7 for 8 from the free throw line. And the Hawks' leading scorer for the night, coming off the bench, and the team's leading scorer overall was their power forward, Danilo Gallinari, who finished with 25 points and 10 rebounds in 29 minutes as he shot 5 for 8 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3, and 13 for 15 from the foul line. With this win, the Atlanta Hawks are now 26-24. They are tied with the reigning Eastern Conference champions, Miami Heat, for the 4th best record in the Eastern Conference, as the Hawks have now won their last 3 games. They've won 6 of their last 10. In the playoff picture, they sit 6.5 games behind the 3rd place Milwaukee Bucks, and they in the Miami Heat sit half a game ahead of the 6th place Charlotte Hornets as the East currently sits, and they sit 8 games behind the Philadelphia 76ers and the Brooklyn Nets, who are both sharing the top record in the Eastern Conference. With this loss, the Golden State Warriors are now 23-27. That is the 10th best record in the Western Conference. They've now lost their last 3 games, and they've now lost 7 of their last 10. They sit 2.5 games behind the 8th place Memphis Grizzlies outside of the playoff picture, as they trail the Utah Jazz by 15.5 games in the conference. Jumping out to the Staples Center, the Los Angeles Clippers faced off against the Los Angeles Lakers. Without their best players in this matchup, the Clippers would beat the Lakers 104-86. In the first half, they would outscore the Los Angeles Lakers by 15, of course, to gain such an advantage. And for the Los Angeles Lakers in this matchup, their leading scorer will come off the bench as the reigning NBA Sixth Man of the Year, Montrezl Harrell, would finish with 19 points, 6 rebounds, and 2 blocks in 27 minutes, as he shot 7 for 12 from the field and 5 for 6 from the free throw line. For the Los Angeles Clippers in this matchup, their leading scorer will be their starting small forward, Marcus Morris Sr., who finished with 22 points and 7 rebounds in 28 minutes, shooting 9 for 13 from the field and 4 for 5 from 3. Their goated starting small forward, Kawhi Leonard, would finish with 19 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists, and 2 steals in 34 minutes, as he shot 8 for 15 from the field, a perfect 2 for 2 from 3, and he made his only free throw attempt of the night. And then their elite starting shooting guard, Paul George, would finish with 16 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals, alongside 5 turnovers in 32 minutes, as he shot 6 for 14 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the free throw line. With this win, the Los Angeles Clippers are now 33-18. That is the 3rd best record in the Western Conference, as they have now won 7 of their last 10 games. Within the playoff picture, they sit 2.5 games behind the 2nd place Phoenix Suns, and they now sit a full game ahead of the 4th place Denver Nuggets, as they trail the Utah Jazz by 6 games in the conference. With this loss, the Los Angeles Lakers are now 31-19. That is the 5th best record in the Western Conference, as they have now lost 6 of their last 10 games. In the playoff picture, they sit half a game behind the 4th place Denver Nuggets, and they now sit half a game ahead of the 6th place Portland Trailblazers, as they trail the 1st place Utah Jazz by 7.5 games in the conference. Jumping out to Chicago, the Chicago Bulls hosted the Brooklyn Nets, and in this matchup, the Chicago Bulls would beat the Brooklyn Nets 115-107. The difference being the second and third quarters, where they outscored the Brooklyn Nets by a combined 20 points in those middle quarters. For the Nets in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their elite starting point guard, Kyrie Irving, out of Duke, who finished with 24 points, 2 rebounds, 15 assists, and 2 steals in 39 minutes, as he shot 12 for 27 from the field on the night. Alongside him in the starting lineup, their elite starting power forward, Blake Griffin, would finish with 10 points and 8 rebounds in 22 minutes, as he shot 4 for 9 from the field, and he made his only free throw on the night. Off the bench, their power forward, Jeff Green, would finish with 21 points in 25 minutes, as he shot 7 for 12 from the field, 4 for 6 from 3, and 3 for 4 from the foul line. For the Chicago Bulls in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their all-star shooting guard, Zach LaVine, who finished with 25 points, 3 rebounds, and 5 assists in 35 minutes, as he shot 8 for 17 from the field, 1 for 5 from 3, and 8 for 12 from the foul line. And alongside him in the starting lineup, their all-star center, Nikola Vucevic, would finish with 22 points, 13 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks in 32 minutes, as he shot 10 for 17 from the field, 1 for 4 from 3, and 1 for 2 from the foul line. With this win, the Chicago Bulls are now 20-28. That is the 10th best record in the Eastern Conference, as they have only won 2 of their last 10 games. They sit 4 games behind the 7th place New York Knicks and the 8th place Boston Celtics outside of the playoff picture, as they trail the 76ers and the Brooklyn Nets by 13 games in the conference. With this loss, the Brooklyn Nets are now 34-16, as they still are tied with the Philadelphia 76ers for the best record in the Eastern Conference. With this loss, they've only lost 3 of their last 10 games, and alongside the 76ers, they sit a game and a half ahead of the 3rd place Milwaukee Bucks in the Eastern Conference playoff picture. Jumping out to Boston, the Boston Celtics hosted the Charlotte Hornets, and after outscoring Charlotte by 16 points in the second quarter and 13 in the third, the Celtics would beat the Hornets 116-86, winning this game by 30 points. For the Charlotte Hornets, on the night, their leading scorer would be their starting shooting guard, Terry Rozier, who finished with 22 points and 7 rebounds in 32 minutes as he shot 8 for 19 from the field, 3 for 9 from 3, and a perfect 3 for 3 from the foul line. For the Boston Celtics in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their elite starting small forward, Jason Tatum, who finished with 22 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists in 28 minutes as he shot 8 for 15 from the field, 3 for 9 from 3, and 3 for 4 from the foul line. Their all-star starting shooting guard, Jaylen Brown, would finish with 17 points and 6 rebounds in 26 minutes as he shot 6 for 13 from the field and 5 for 8 from 3. And alongside both of them in the starting lineup, their elite starting point guard, Kemba Walker, would finish with 12 points, 2 rebounds, and 6 assists in 26 minutes as he shot 5 for 12 from the field and 2 for 9 from 3. With this win, the Boston Celtics are now 25-25. That is tied with they're now tied with the New York Knicks for the 7th best record in the Eastern Conference, with the 7th and 8th spots, holding on to the last 2 spots in the East. With this win, the Celtics have now won their last 2 games, and they've now won 5 of their last 10. Alongside the Knicks in the Eastern Conference playoff picture, they sit half a game behind the 6th place Charlotte Hornets, and both these teams sit 2 games ahead of the 9th place Indiana Pacers, who are on the outside looking in. With this loss, the Charlotte Hornets are now 25-24. That is the 6th best record in the Eastern Conference, as they have now won 5 of their last 10 games as well. In the Eastern Conference playoff picture, they sit half a game behind the 4th place Atlanta Hawks and the 5th place Miami Heat, and they sit half a game ahead of the 7th place New York Knicks and the 8th place Boston Celtics, just showing that they are half a game separates them between them and 4th place and between them and 8th place as well, just to show how close the bottom of the Eastern Conference is. And at the end of the day, the Charlotte Hornets now sit 8.5 games behind the 76ers and the Nets out east. And speaking of the 76ers hosted the Memphis Grizzlies, and in their opportunity to claim the top spot in the Eastern Conference, the Sixers would fall to the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies would beat the Sixers 116-100. The 16-point difference would come in the third quarter, where they outscored the Philadelphia 76ers 45-29. For the Sixers in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their starting power forward, Tobias Harris out of Tennessee, who finished with 21 points and 8 rebounds in 27 minutes as he shot 8 for 14 from the field and 5 for 6 from the foul line. Alongside him in the starting lineup, the Sixers' elite starting point guard, Ben Simmons, would finish with 7 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists in 26 minutes as he shot 2 for 6 from the field and 3 for 6 from the foul line. For the Memphis Grizzlies in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their starting small forward out of Oregon, Dillon Brooks, who finished with 17 points and 5 rebounds in 26 minutes, shooting 6 for 9 from the field, a perfect 2 for 2 from 3, and 3 for 4 from the foul line. Alongside him in the starting lineup, the Memphis Grizzlies' elite starting point guard, Ja Morant, would finish with 8 points, 5 rebounds, and 10 assists in 29 minutes as he shot 3 for 8 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3, and 1 for 2 from the foul line. With this win, the Memphis Grizzlies are now 24-23. That is currently the 8th best record in the Western Conference, as they are now tied with the San Antonio Spurs. They've won their last 2 games and 6 of their last 10. In the playoff picture, they currently sit 2.5 games behind the 7th place Dallas Mavericks, and alongside the San Antonio Spurs, they sit 2.5 games ahead of the 10th place Golden State Warriors, who are on the outside looking in. And with this loss, the Philadelphia 76ers are now 34-16, as they are now tied with the Brooklyn Nets for the best record in the Eastern Conference. With this loss, they've still won 6 of their last 10 games, and alongside the Brooklyn Nets, the 76ers sit 1.5 games ahead of the 3rd place Milwaukee Bucks, just to show where they are in the conference. Jumping out to Houston, the Houston Rockets hosted the New Orleans Pelicans, and in this matchup, the Pelicans would beat the Rockets 122-115. After the big difference coming in the fourth quarter, where they would outscore the Rockets by 10, they came into the fourth quarter down by 3, and they won this game by 7. For the Houston Rockets in this matchup, their leading scorer would come off the bench as their power forward Kelly Olynyk would finish with 26 points and 8 rebounds in 33 minutes. He shot 9 for 17 from the field, 5 for 13 from 3, and a perfect 3 for 3 from the foul line. For the New Orleans Pelicans in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their starting point guard out of UCLA, Lonzo Ball, who finished with 27 points, 9 assists and 3 steals alongside 6 turnovers in 37 minutes. He shot 8 for 18 from the field, 8 for 15 from 3, and he shot a perfect 3 for 3 from the foul line. With this win, the New Orleans Pelicans are now 22-27. That is the 5th worst record in the Western Conference, as they have now won their last 5, or they've now won 5 of their last 10 games. They currently sit 3 games behind the 8th place Memphis Grizzlies and the 9th place San Antonio Spurs outside of the playoff picture, as they trail the Utah Jazz by 16 games in the Western Conference. With this loss, the Houston Rockets are now 13-36. That is the 2nd worst record in the Western Conference, as they have now lost their last 4 games and 8 of their last 10. They currently trail the 8th place Memphis Grizzlies and the 9th place San Antonio Spurs by 12 games in the Western Conference. Outside of the playoff picture, as they now trail the 1st place Utah Jazz by 25 games in the entire conference. Last but not least, jumping out to Denver, the Denver Nuggets hosted the Orlando Magic, as of course Aaron Gordon faced off against his former team. And in this matchup, the Denver Nuggets would come into the 4th quarter trailing by 1. They would outscore the Orlando Magic 34-23 to win the game by 10. And they also went on to outscore the Magic by 17 in the 3rd, outscoring the Magic by 28 total points in the second half to overcome their 18-point halftime deficit to win this game by 10. For the Orlando Magic in this matchup, their leading scorer, they had 2 players that tied for 19 points. Their starting power forward, Chuma Okeke out of Auburn, would finish with 19 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, and a couple of steals in 39 minutes, as he shot 7 for 17 from the field and a perfect 3 for 3 from the line. And then off the bench, their shooting guard, Terrence Ross, would finish with 19 points in 31 minutes, as he shot 7 for 18 from the field and 3 for 5 from the foul line. For the Denver Nuggets in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their starting power forward and former Orlando Magic power forward, Aaron Gordon. He finished with 24 points and 7 rebounds alongside 2 blocks in 35 minutes, as he shot 10 for 13 from the field. He made his only 3-pointer of the night, and he shot 3 for 5 from the foul line. Alongside him in the starting lineup, their elite starting point guard Jamal Murray would finish with 22 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals in 37 minutes, as he shot 7 for 18 from the field, 3 for 9 from 3, and a perfect 5 for 5 from the foul line. Their starting small forward, Michael Porter Jr. out of Missouri, would finish with 20 points and 12 rebounds in 36 minutes, shooting 8 for 14 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. And then their elite starting center and their MVP candidate, Nikola Jokic, would finish with 17 points, 9 rebounds, and 16 assists in 38 minutes, as he shot 5 for 18 from the field and 7 for 9 from the foul line. With this win, the Denver Nuggets are now 31-18. That is the 4th best record in the Western Conference, as they have now jumped half a game ahead of the Los Angeles Lakers. They are now currently on a 5-game winning streak, as they have now won 8 of their last 10 games. In the Western Conference playoff picture, they sit a game behind the 3rd place Los Angeles Clippers, and they now sit half a game ahead of the 5th place defending NBA champions Los Angeles Lakers, as they trail the Utah Jazz by 7 games in the conference. With this loss, the Orlando Magic are now 17-33. That is the 2nd worst record in the Eastern Conference, as they have now lost their last 2 games. They've lost 6 of their last 10. They currently sit 8 games behind the 8th place Boston Celtics and the 7th place New York Knicks, for that matter, in the Eastern Conference playoff picture. And they now trail the 76ers and the Brooklyn Nets by 17 total games in the Eastern Conference. And that's what the NBA is looking like following yesterday's games. Looking forward into what's going on today, because it is Monday, and at the same time they will be airing the national championship at 7 o'clock. The Brooklyn Nets, the current one of the holders of the Eastern Conference's best record, will host the New York Knicks on NBA TV. Of course, that'll be a New York matchup that many are waiting to see. That'll be the only primetime matchup. Outside of that, at 7 o'clock at the same time, because all but one game is playing at 7. The Toronto Raptors are going to host the Washington Wizards in Tampa, Florida. The Dallas Mavericks are going to host the Utah Jazz, who currently hold the best record in the West. The Minnesota Timberwolves, who currently hold the worst record in the West, are going to host the Sacramento Kings. The Oklahoma City Thunder are going to host the Detroit Pistons, who have the worst record in the East. And at the same time, the San Antonio Spurs are going to host the Cleveland Cavaliers. And then following that, the only game at 8 o'clock will feature the Houston Rockets and the Phoenix Suns in Houston in the Toyota Center. That's everything that's going on with the NBA right now. Staying within the arena, but of course shifting the context to hockey just to get a glimpse of what's going on out there. Of course, it's worth noting that every team has to play within their own division just to limit traveling because of COVID. I'm going to start off in the Central. The Tampa Bay Lightning hosted the Detroit Red Wings, and in this matchup, the Red Wings would beat the Lightning 5-1 to pick up their 13th win of the season. With this win, the Red Wings still sit at the bottom of the Central Division as they trail the top seed Florida Panthers by 25 points in the table. Jumping out to Miami, the Florida Panthers were able to beat the Columbus Blue Jackets 3-0 in order to jump up to the number 1 spot in the Central. They now sit 2 points ahead of the Tampa Bay Lightning with one more game played, as they are now on a 6-game winning streak, which of course is the best streak in the division. Jumping out to Charlotte, the Carolina Hurricanes host the Dallas Stars, and they were able to score the only goal of the game in the second period to give them their 25th win of the season. With this win, they now sit 3rd in the Central, 1 point behind the Lightning and 3 points behind the Florida Panthers with 2 less games played than the Panthers at the moment. Jumping out to the Eastern Division, the New Jersey Devils hosted the Washington Capitals, and in a game that went all the way down to the wire, the Washington Capitals would pull off a 5-4 win. They were led by their future Hall of Fame left winger Alexander Ovechkin, who had a goal and 2 assists of his own. With their 25th win of the season, the Capitals now sit at the very top of the East Division as they sit 2 points ahead of the New York Islanders. And then jumping up north of the border, the Calgary Flames hosted the Toronto Maple Leafs, and the Maple Leafs were able to pull off a 4-2 win as 2 of their goals came in the third period. They came from behind in order to pick up their 25th win of the season, and with their 25th win of the season, they sit on top of the North Division, now by 6 points over the second place Edmonton Oilers and the Winnipeg Jets, because the Oilers and the Jets are tied for second place. And then last but not least, jumping out west, the Ducks hosted the Coyotes, and then Chychrun, the Arizona Coyotes defender, he would score all 3 of their goals as the Coyotes would beat the Ducks 3-2 in overtime. And after picking up their hat trick, after Chychrun's hat trick, the Coyotes now have 18 wins on the season, and they now sit 4th in the West Division as they trail the Colorado Avalanche by 13 points in the table, as they've now won their last 2 games. Looking forward to what's going on today, of course, starting with the primetime matchups. At 7 o'clock, the Montreal Canadiens are going to host the Edmonton Oilers on ESPN+. At 8 o'clock, the Minnesota Wild are going to host the Colorado Avalanche on ESPN+ as well. Outside of those games at 7, the Winnipeg Jets are going to host the Senators at 7. And the Bruins are going to host the Flyers at the same time. At 8 o'clock, the St. Louis Blues are going to host the Las Vegas Golden Knights. At 9:30, the Calgary Flames are going to host the Toronto Maple Leafs. And at 10 o'clock, the Los Angeles Kings are going to host the Arizona Coyotes. That's everything that's going on, of course, within the context of hockey. Jumping really quick to the MLB, because, of course, the MLB is just getting started as well. Jumping out to Philadelphia for the first primetime game, the Philadelphia Phillies were able to beat the Atlanta Braves 2-1 as the game would go into the 8th inning tied, but it would be an Alec Bohm RBI single that would give the Phillies the win that they needed to advance past the reigning National League East champs. For the Atlanta Braves in this matchup, the start went to their rookie Ian Anderson, who would allow 1 earned run in the 5 innings that he pitched as he struck out 7 batters on the day. Their elite right fielder Ronald Acuna Jr. would go 0 for 4 as he struck out twice. Their elite second baseman Ozzie Albies would finish 0 for 4. Their elite first baseman Freddie Freeman would finish 0 for 2 as he walked twice. Their elite left fielder Marcell Ozuna would go 0 for 3 as he struck out twice and he also walked once. For the Philadelphia Phillies, their starting pitcher would be Zach Eflin, who had allowed only 1 earned run in the 7 innings that he pitched as he struck out 8 batters on the day. Their elite right fielder Bryce Harper would go 1 for 3 on the day. Their second-year third baseman Alec Bohm would go 2 for 4 as he finished with an RBI, including the game-winning RBI. And then their catcher Andrew Knapp would go 1 for 1 as he hit a solo home run to start it, as both catchers did. With this win, the Philadelphia Phillies are now 3-0. That is the best record in the National League East. as they sit a game and a half over the Nationals and the Mets, who still have yet to play a game in the division. With this loss, the Atlanta Braves are now 0-3. They have the worst record in the National League East, as they now trail the Philadelphia Phillies by 3 games in the division. Jumping out to New York, the New York Yankees hosted the Toronto Blue Jays, and after the Blue Jays would score 3 runs in the second inning, the first would come off of a solo home run from their elite young first baseman, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and then Randall Grichuk's 2-run home run would put them up 3. The Yankees just simply would not score enough to tie it up. The Blue Jays would win this 2-1 for the New York Yankees in this matchup. Their relief pitcher, Michael King, he would pitch 6 innings, as he would allow only 1 hit in those 6 innings. But it would be Germán, their starting pitcher, who would pick up the loss. For the Yankees in the lineup, their elite second baseman, DJ LeMay, would go 1 for 3 as he walked once. Their elite designated hitter, Aaron Judge, would go 0 for 4. Their elite shortstop, Gleyber Torres, would go 1 for 4 on the day as well. For the Toronto Blue Jays, the start went to Zoik, as he would only pitch 4 innings, but he would allow no runs in those 4 innings. Baruki would pick up the win. For Toronto, like I said, their elite first baseman, Vlad Guerrero Jr., would go 1 for 4 as he hit a solo home run, his first of the season. Randall Grichuk would go 1 for 3 as he finished with 2 RBIs and a run. With this win, the Toronto Blue Jays are now 2-1. Looking on the American League East, they're tied with the Rays for the second best record, as they now trail the Baltimore Orioles by a game in the division. With this loss, the New York Yankees are now 1-2, as they have the 4th best record in the American League East, as they trail the Baltimore Orioles by 2 games in the division. Jumping out to Boston, the Boston Red Sox hosted the Baltimore Orioles, and after the Orioles would put up 10 runs in the first 3 innings, the Boston Red Sox just would not be able to compete for the rest of the game. And with this win, the Orioles are now undefeated. They continue their winning streak to start the season. For the Red Sox, their elite designated hitter, JD Martinez, would go 2 for 4 as he finished with 2 RBIs and a run, as he hit his first home run of the season in the 4th inning. And then their catcher, Christian Vasquez, would finish 3 for 4 as he finished with a run as well for the team. For Baltimore, the win would go to their starting pitcher, Bruce Zimmerman, as he would allow 3 earned runs in 6 innings pitched as he struck out 5 batters. Their center fielder, Cedric Mullins, would end up going 5 for 5 as he finished with 3 runs on the day. Their first baseman, Trey Mancini, would finish 2 for 6 as he finished with 2 RBIs and 2 runs. As, by the way, the Orioles finished with no home runs on the day either. The right fielder, Anthony Santander, would go 3 for 5 with 2 RBIs and a run. Their second baseman, Rio Ruiz, would go 2 for 6 with a run. With this win, the Orioles are now 3-0, sitting at the top of the American League East, sitting 1 game ahead of the second-place Toronto Blue Jays and the second-place Tampa Bay Rays, just to give a sense of where they sit. And then with this loss, the Boston Red Sox are now 0-3. They and the Atlanta Braves just sitting at the bottom of their East divisions. The Red Sox now sit 3 games behind the AL East leading Baltimore Orioles at the moment. Jumping out to Detroit, the Detroit Tigers hosted the Cleveland Indians, and the Cleveland Indians would score 8 of their 9 runs in the last 4 innings to pick up their first win of the season. For the Detroit Tigers, the start went to Skubal, who would allow 2 earned runs in 5.1 innings pitched as he struck out 4 batters. Their right fielder, Nomar Masada, he finished 1 for 3 with 2 RBIs and a run as he hit his first home run of the season. And then their left fielder, Akil Badu, would hit his first home run of the season as he went 1 for 3 with an RBI and a run. For Cleveland, Savali would pick up the start as he picked up his very first win of the season. He would allow 3 earned runs in 7 innings pitched as Aaron Savali struck out 6 batters in that space. Their elite third baseman, Jose Ramirez, would go 2 for 5 with a run. Luplo, their center fielder, would go 1 for 4 with 2 RBIs and a run. He hit his first home run of the season. Franmil Reyes hit his first home run of the season, as well as their designated hitter would go 1 for 4 with 2 RBIs and a run. And then Hedges, their catcher, would go 1 for 4 with an RBI and a run as he hit his first home run of the season as well. With this win, the Cleveland Indians are now 1-2. That is the fourth best record in the AL Central, as they now trail the Kansas City Royals, the Detroit Tigers, and the Minnesota Twins by a game. And then with this loss, the Detroit Tigers are now 2-1, as they sit alongside the Kansas City Royals and the Minnesota Twins at the top of the American League Central. Jumping out to Cincinnati, the Cincinnati Reds hosted the St. Louis Cardinals, and after scoring all 12 of their runs in the 4th through 7th innings, they would pick up a 12-1 win, beating the Cardinals for their second win of the season. For the Cardinals in this game, the start and loss would go to their starting pitcher, Carlos Martinez, who allowed 4 earned runs in his 5 innings pitched as he struck out 4 batters. In the lineup, their elite first baseman, Paul Goldschmidt, would go 0 for 4 as he struck out once. Their elite third baseman, Nolan Arenado, would go 1 for 3. And that was really kind of everything going on there. Their only RBI went to their future Hall of Fame catcher, Yadier Molina. For Cincinnati, the start went to Jeff Hoffman, and in this matchup, he would allow only 1 earned run in the 5 innings that he pitches. He struck out 6 batters. Their right fielder, Nick Castellanos, would go 2 for 4 with 3 RBIs and 2 runs as he hit his second home run of the season. Their future Hall of Fame first baseman, Joey Votto, would go 1 for 4 with an RBI for himself as well. Their elite shortstop, Eugenio Suarez, would go 0 for 3 as he walked twice. Last but not least, of course, how can I miss? Their catcher, Tyler Stevenson, would end up 3 for 4 with an RBI and 3 runs. With this win, the Cincinnati Reds are now 2-1. They are now tied with the Chicago Cubs for the best record in the National League Central. With this loss, the St. Louis Cardinals are now 1-2, tied with the Milwaukee Brewers and the Pittsburgh Pirates for the worst record in the NL Central, as the Brewers and the Pirates sit a game behind the Cubs and the Reds at the moment. Jumping out to Kansas City, the Kansas City Royals hosted the Texas Rangers, and in this matchup, the Rangers would beat the Royals 7-3 after they scored 6 runs in the 3rd and 4th innings combined. For the Kansas City Royals in this matchup, Brady Singer would pick up the start as he allowed 5 earned runs in 3.1 innings pitched. Their elite second baseman, Whit Merrifield, would finish 1 for 4 on the day. Their first baseman, Carlos Santana, would go 2 for 4. Their elite catcher, Salvador Perez, would go 1 for 4 with 2 RBIs and a run as he hit his first home run of the season. For the Texas Rangers, their start will go to their starting pitcher, Jordan Lyles. Jordan Lyles would allow 2 earned runs in 5.2 innings pitched as he struck out 8 batters, and he picked up his very first win of the season. He's 1-0. For Texas, their shortstop, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, will go 3 for 4 with 3 RBIs and a run as he hit his first home run of the season as well. Their designated hitter, Nate Lau, would finish 2 for 4 with 3 RBIs and a run as he had a 465-foot home run yesterday. And so far, that's the longest of the season. And their right fielder, Joey Gallo, will go 2 for 5 with a run. With this win, the Texas Rangers are now 1-2. That is the 4th best record in the American League West, as they now trail the Houston Astros by 2.5 games in the division. With this loss, the Kansas City Royals are now 2-1, as they are tied with the Detroit Tigers and the Minnesota Twins for the best record in the American League Central at the moment. Jumping out to Milwaukee, the Milwaukee Brewers hosted the Minnesota Twins, and the Minnesota Twins were able to pull off an 8-2 win after they scored 4 of their runs in the 6th inning. For them, of course, Mitch Garver, Miguel Sano would pick up their first home runs of the season as well. Looking at how the Brewers performed, the start would go to their starting pitcher, Adrian Hauser. He would allow 2 earned runs in the 5 innings that he pitched as he struck out 4 batters. Their elite left fielder, Christian Yelich, would go 1 for 4 as he struck out twice. Their center fielder, Jackie Bradley Jr. from Boston, would finish 1 for 4 with an RBI and 2 runs. For the Minnesota Twins in this matchup, the start would go to Michael Pineda, who would allow 0 earned runs, but there was still a run scored on him in the 5 innings that he pitched as he struck out 5 batters. For Minnesota, their third baseman, Luis Arias, would go 3 for 3 with a run as he walked twice. He made it to base every single time. Their right fielder, Max Kepler, would go 1 for 5 as he finished with 3 RBIs and a run as he hit his first home run of the season as well. With this win, the Minnesota Twins are now 2-1, tied with the Detroit Tigers and the Kansas City Royals for the best record in the American League Central. And with this loss, The Milwaukee Brewers are now 1-2, tied with the Cardinals and the Pirates for the worst record in the NL Central, as all three of these teams sit one game behind the Chicago Cubs and the Cincinnati Reds, who are both sitting at the top of the division. Speaking of the Cubs hosted the Pittsburgh Pirates and were able to pull off a 4-3 win at home yesterday after scoring three of their four in the first 3 innings. For the Pirates in this matchup, the loss would go to Keller, as Keller only pitched 3 innings and allowed 3 earned runs in those innings. Their third baseman, Phillip Evans, would finish 3 for 4 on the night as he finished with an RBI. And then their first baseman, Colin Moran, would hit his first home run of the 6th inning. He finished 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs and a run. For the Chicago Cubs in this matchup, the win would go to their starting pitcher, Zach Davies, who would allow only 2 earned runs in his 5.2 innings pitch as he struck out 5 batters. Their elite third baseman, Chris Bryant, would finish 2 for 3 with an RBI and a run. He had his first RBI of the season. And alongside him, their elite starting shortstop, Javier Baez, would go 0 for 4 as he finished with an RBI as well. With this win, the Chicago Cubs are sitting alongside the Reds at the top of the National League Central, as they are now 2-1. And with this loss, the Pittsburgh Pirates are now tied with the Milwaukee Brewers and the St. Louis Cardinals at the bottom of the National League Central, as all three of these teams trail the Chicago Cubs and the Cincinnati Reds by a game in the table. And also for the Chicago Cubs, the first save of the season for their elite closer, Craig Kimbrell. Jumping out to Denver, the Colorado Rockies hosted the defending champs Los Angeles Dodgers, and in this matchup, the Dodgers would beat the Rockies 4-2 to pick up their third win of the season after scoring 3 runs in the first inning. For the Colorado Rockies in this matchup, the loss would go to their starting pitcher, Austin Gomber, who was one of the players that was traded to Colorado for Nolan Arenado. He would allow 1 earned run in the 3 innings that he pitched, but he walked like 7 batters, so he got benched. Their elite right fielder, Charlie Blackmon, would go 0 for 4 on the day. The only RBIs would come from their center fielder, Garrett Hampson, who finished 1 for 3 on the day. And then because he would finish with a double, he hit his second double of the season. For the Los Angeles Dodgers, the win would go to Julio Urias, the pitcher that threw the last pitch for the Dodgers in their 2020 World Series win. In this win, Urias would allow only 1 earned run in the 7 innings that he pitched, as he only allowed 3 hits and struck out 6 batters. For Los Angeles in this matchup, their elite right fielder, Mookie Betts, would go 1 for 3 with a run on the day. He was the only elite batter that was really playing for LA that day. Additionally, their catcher, Will Smith, would go 1 for 3 with an RBI and a run, as he finished with a home run as well. With this win, the Los Angeles Dodgers, the defending champs, are now sitting with the best record in the National League West, tied with the San Diego Padres at 3-1. And with this loss, the Colorado Rockies are now 1-3, tied with the Arizona Diamondbacks for the worst record in the National League West at the moment, as both of these teams trail the Los Angeles Dodgers and the San Diego Padres by 2 games in the division. Jumping out to Oakland, the Oakland Athletics hosted the Houston Astros, and the Houston Astros were able to beat the A's 9-2 as they scored 5 of their 9 runs in the first 3 innings, and they scored 4 in the 6th alone. For the Athletics in this matchup, the loss will go to their starting pitcher, Sean Manaea, who allowed 5 earned runs in the 4.2 innings that he pitched. Their elite third baseman, Matt Chapman, would go 1 for 3 on the day. Their center fielder, Mark Canha, would go 2 for 4 with 2 runs on the day for himself. For the Houston Astros in this matchup, Urquidy would get the start, but Bielak would pick up the win, as Bielak would allow no earned runs and no hits in the 4.2 innings that he pitched, as he struck out 4 batters. Their elite second baseman, Jose Altuve, will go 1 for 5 with a run. Their right fielder, Kyle Tucker, will go 1 for 5 with an RBI and a run as he hit his first home run of the season. Their elite third baseman, Alex Bregman, will go 2 for 4. Their first baseman, Yuli Gurriel, will go 3 for 4 with 2 RBIs and a run as well. And their catcher, Castro, would go 1 for 4 with 2 RBIs and 2 runs. He hit his first home run. And then their left fielder, Chas McCormick, would hit his first home run of the season as he went 1 for 4 with 3 RBIs and a run. With this win, the Houston Astros have the league's best record as they are now 4-0. They now sit they sit one game ahead of the Los Angeles Angels in their division, just to show where they are. With this loss, the Oakland A's are now 0-4. They have the worst record in baseball right now as they now trail the Houston Astros by 4 games in their division, following the very first series in which they got swept. Jumping out to San Diego, coming into this matchup, the Padres are looking to sweep the Diamondbacks, but in this matchup, the Diamondbacks would beat the Padres 3-1 after they scored all 3 of their runs in the first 3 innings. For the Padres, the loss will go to their starting pitcher, Chris Paddack, who allowed 2 earned runs in those 4 innings pitched, as there were 3 runs scored on him. He would strike out 3 batters in that span. Their elite shortstop, Fernando Tatis Jr., would go 2 for 4 with an RBI and a run as he hit his first home run of the season in the 9th inning. Their elite third baseman, Manny Machado, would go 0 for 3 as he walked once for himself. For the Arizona Diamondbacks in this matchup, the win would go to their starting pitcher, Taylor Widener. Taylor Widener would allow no earned runs and allow 0. He would allow only 3 hits in 6 innings pitches. He struck out 5 batters. And then for the Arizona Diamondbacks, their left fielder, David Peralta, would go 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs on the day. The 2 RBIs that the Diamondbacks actually needed. And with this win, the Diamondbacks are now 1-3. Looking out into the National League West, they now are tied with the Rockies for the worst record in the NL West, but with this win, they now trail the Dodgers and the Padres, who are still sitting at the top by 2 games. Like I said, with their first loss of the season, the Padres are now tied with the Dodgers, and both these teams are sitting at the very top of the National League West currently as it stands. And jumping out to Anaheim for the last baseball game of last night, the Anaheim Angels hosted the Chicago White Sox. And going into the bottom of the 9th, the score actually was tied at 9, and it would be a walk-off 3-run home run from Jared Walsh, his second home run of the day that would give the Los Angeles Angels their 3rd win of the season and a very good one over the White Sox. For the White Sox, the starting pitcher would be Dylan Cease, and in this matchup, he would allow 3 earned runs in the 4.2 innings that he pitched. He struck out 3 batters on the night as well. Their elite shortstop, Tim Anderson, would go 0 for 1, but he would leave the game after he was limping after running through first. Their elite first baseman and reigning American League MVP, Jose Abreu, would go 0 for 3 as he finished with 2 walks and a run on the day. Yermy Mercedes would go 1 for 5 as he struck out twice, as he set a Chicago White Sox record for 8 hits in his first 3 games. That's never been done in White Sox history. And for the Los Angeles Angels in this matchup, the start would go to Shohei Ohtani. He was the first player in like 118 years that was a starting pitcher and batted second. And I think either the American League or just all of baseball in total. In this, as a pitcher, Shohei Ohtani would allow 1 earned run, and there were 3 runs scored on him, as he would strike out 7 batters in the 4.2 innings that he pitched. As a hitter, he would go 1 for 3 with an RBI and a run as he hit his second home run of the season right after he pitched, by the way, for just a wild feat to see. Their goated starting center fielder, Mike Trout, would go 1 for 4 with a run on the day. Their elite third baseman, Anthony Rendon, would go 1 for 4 with a run on the day. Their first baseman, Jared Walsh, would probably go down as the best hitter yesterday. He went 2 for 4 with 4 RBIs and 2 runs. He had 4 of the 7 RBIs to give the Angels their win. And, of course, he hit the walk-off home run to give them their 3rd win of the season. With this win, the Los Angeles Angels are now 3-1. That is the 2nd best record in the American League West, as they now trail the Houston Astros by a game. And with this, they trailed by a game in the division. And with this loss, the Chicago White Sox are now 1-3. They have the worst record in the American League Central, as they trailed the Kansas City Royals, the Detroit Tigers, and the Minnesota Twins by a game and a half in the division. So those are all the games from yesterday. Looking forward to what's going on today, especially in baseball, as all these teams are transitioning into a new series. Starting at 1:00, the Detroit Tigers are going to host the Minnesota Twins on ESPN. That game will be on primetime, as Jose Urena makes his first start for the Tigers. At 4:10, the Cleveland Indians are going to face off against the Kansas City Royals as Danny Duffy looks to make his start for Kansas City. That game will be on ESPN as well. At 7:10, the Boston Red Sox will host the Tampa Bay Rays on ESPN. At 7:40, the Chicago Cubs will host the Milwaukee Brewers on ESPN Plus. And then at 10:10, the Seattle Mariners will host the Chicago White Sox. That game will be on ESPN. Outside of that, the games that aren't going to be on prime time. At 4:05, the Texas Rangers will host the Toronto Blue Jays. At 6:35, the New York Yankees are going to host the Baltimore Orioles, coming off of their 3-0 start. At 6:40, the Cincinnati Reds are going to host the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Miami Marlins are going to host the St. Louis Cardinals. At 7:05, the Philadelphia Phillies, who came off their 3-0 start, are going to host the New York Mets. And we're going to see the debut of Jacob deGrom, their elite starting pitcher, because the Mets play their first game today as well. At 9:38, the Los Angeles Angels, who are now 3-1, are going to host the Houston Astros, as these were the top two teams from the American League West following the first series. At 9:40, the Oakland Athletics, who are coming off of a 0-4 start, are going to face off against the defending champs Los Angeles Dodgers, led by Dustin May. And then at 10:10, the San Diego Padres are going to host the San Francisco Giants, as the San Diego Padres are going to continue to be tested as the best team, or as one of the best teams in the National League. So that's everything that's going on with baseball, and just to leave the continent to give a sense of what's going on in the world of soccer. Starting off in the Premier League, first off, Tottenham faced off against Newcastle, and at Newcastle was able to score the first goal in the 28th minute, and then Tottenham would get a brace from their elite English striker Harry Kane in the 30th and 34th minute, but then an 85th minute goal from Newcastle would tie the game up at 2. So with this draw, Tottenham Hotspur now sits 5th in the Premier League. They are now tied with Liverpool and West Ham in points, as West Ham has played one less game than both those teams. But they now sit 2 points below Chelsea currently in the Premier League title race, as right now they are in Europa League competition outside of Champions League comp. That's what that's looking like. Jumping out to Manchester United was able to beat Brighton and Hove 2-1. They were trailing 1-0 for a good amount of the game, and about an hour in, Marcus Rashford, their elite English forward, would score in the 62nd minute, and then the 83rd minute they would score from their young midfielder Mason Greenwood in the 83rd minute to give them their 3 points in the table. With this win, they still sit 14 points below Manchester City in the Premier League with one less game played, and they now sit 4 points ahead of Leicester City moving forward towards the Premier League, towards the end of the season. Looking down in La Liga, Atletico Madrid, the team that's currently sitting at the top of La Liga, lost to Sevilla yesterday, as the only goal would come in the 70th minute from Acuna. With this loss, Atletico Madrid still sits on top of La Liga, but they have played the same amount of games as Real Madrid. They only sit 3 points ahead of Real Madrid, and they sit 4 points ahead of Barcelona, and Barcelona has played one less game, and Barcelona looks to tighten that deficit today. So that's everything that was going on yesterday. Looking forward to what's going on today. Speaking of Barcelona will host Real Valladolid at 3 o'clock. A win here could see them jump past Real Madrid and temporarily sit 1 point behind Atletico Madrid. So, of course, all the pressure is on Barcelona. That's the only big soccer game to look forward to. So, once again, that's everything to look forward to for today, Monday, April 5th, 2021, out here in this quarantine. I'm James Sims, and this is The Elite. And like I said, once all of these exhibitions are done, I will get back to you tomorrow on Tuesday, April 6, 2021. Thanks once again for listening to all 48 minutes of my piece. I hope all is well, and thank you for being a part of the journey, and I'll catch you tomorrow with a new episode. Peace out.